You bought the books. You did the visualization. You waited patiently for the universe to deliver the perfect job, the perfect relationship, the yacht you demanded. And nothing happened. Why? Because the modern gospel of positive thinking is a spiritual lottery ticket. It's wishful thinking, wrapped in cheap motivational quotes, designed to make you feel momentarily good while ignoring the fundamental mechanism of reality. They told you that if you just think positive thoughts, you will attract positive things. That if you ignore the darkness will eventually cease to exist. This is a deep, dangerous lie. It makes you passive. It teaches you to wait for external forces to solve internal weakness. You are not failing because you lack faith in the universe. You are failing because you misunderstand the fundamental relationship between your inner life and the outer world. You are trying to attract $1 million with a life condition that is designed to repel it.
You are trying to build a mansion on quicksand. The problem isn't your desire. The problem is your depth of life. The world you inhabit, your job, your relationships, the physical state of your body, the flow of your finances, is not something happening to you. It is the perfect, undeniable mirror of the state of your inner existence, your deepest, most fundamental life condition. They told you to change your thoughts. I am telling you to change your life itself. We are not talking about the law of attraction. We are talking about the law of cause and effect that governs the universe. A law so precise, so demanding, that it makes modern physics look like playground rules. To understand this power, we must leave the gurus in Malibu and travel back to the source of this understanding. We must go back to a time when life wasn't just slightly inconvenient, but truly desperate. The 13th century in Japan. Imagine an era defined by absolute collapse.
Famine, plague, earthquakes, political civil war, and invasion threats hammering the country simultaneously. This was not a bad quarter. This was the end of civilization as they knew it. The people were desperate, seeking refuge in spiritual escapism. They were praying for rebirth in some distant, pure land, or chanting esoteric formulas that promised protection from the immediate terror. The religious establishments of the time offered comfort, but they offered no solution for the actual, living reality of suffering. They taught detachment. They taught acceptance of misery as fate. Into this chaos stepped a lone monk named Nichiren Daishonin. He was not looking for comfort. He was looking for a weapon. He looked at the chaos and realized that the suffering was not random. The suffering was a perfect manifestation of a deeply corrupted spiritual foundation.
The country, the people, the environment, they were all vibrating at a frequency of destruction because the fundamental teaching of life had been obscured or abandoned. Nichiren rejected the idea that suffering was a punishment or a necessary evil to be endured. He saw suffering as a signal, a catastrophic diagnosis demanding immediate, fundamental change. He spent decades studying the entirety of the Buddhist canon, seeking the core principle, the single, irreducible truth that could transform the inner life of an individual and, by extension, transform the environment of the entire world. He found it in the Lotus Sutra, not in the flowery language or the complex parables, but in the single, terrifyingly profound doctrine
of Ichinen Sanzen. 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. This is where the superficial law of attraction breaks entirely. It operates on the surface level of positive thoughts. Ichinen Sanzen operates on the atomic level of your existence.
It states that every single moment of your life contains the potential for all possible states of existence, from the lowest hell to the highest enlightenment. And crucially, it defines the unbreakable link between you and everything outside of you. This link is called Esho Funi, the oneness of life and its environment. This is the principle that dismantles every excuse you have ever made for why you are stuck. It states unequivocally that your environment, your circumstances, the people you meet, they are not accidental fixtures of fate. They are the inseparable shadows of your own life condition. If Esho Funi is the truth, the absolute oneness of life and environment, then every single circumstance you face is not an external problem. It is a perfect, undeniable manifestation of the life condition you are currently emitting. Your financial debt is not an accident caused by the economy.
It is the shadow of a life state operating from the world of hunger, perpetually seeking external satisfaction while lacking internal security. That toxic boss, that frustrating commute, they are the environment perfectly calibrated to reflect the internal friction you carry. You cannot change the mirror by scrubbing the reflection. You must change the source. This is why the shallow law of attraction fails. It tries to paint a happy face on a broken core. It tells you to think rich while you are still fundamentally vibrating at the frequency of scarcity. Ichinen Sanzen, 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, is the engine that makes transformation possible. It tells you that you are not a fixed entity. You are not permanently defined by your past trauma or your current failures. You are a reservoir of all possible states of existence right now. The 10 worlds, from hell to Buddhahood, are not places you travel to after death.
They are the frequencies you occupy, moment to moment. When you are trapped in the world of hell, you experience despair so profound that your environment confirms your hopelessness. The light is shut out. Every door closes. When you are operating from the world of anger, you see the world as something to be controlled or fought against. You attract conflict. You create the environment of friction. The moment you shift that internal dial, the entire 3,000-fold matrix of your life begins to adjust. This is not magic. This is spiritual physics. Nichiren Daishonin understood that the highest level, Buddhahood, was not an ethereal escape from reality, but the complete, courageous realization of the absolute sanctity of your own life. It is the state where the environment, through Esho Funi, is forced to reflect back to you the profound potential you possess. When Nichiren began propagating this ultimate teaching, he was not met with acceptance.
He was met with immediate, violent opposition. He was exiled repeatedly. His life was threatened multiple times. At Tatsunokuchi, he was taken out under the cover of night, fully expecting to be decapitated. This persecution was not a failure of his Buddhist practice. It was the ultimate proof of Esho Funi. His life condition, pure, unbreakable,
and focused entirely on the fundamental law of the universe was so incompatible with the corrupted, chaotic, and self-serving environment of 13th century Japan that the environment had no choice but to attempt to expel him. The sickness of the age reacted violently to the cure. Nichiren was able to pass through these persecutions not because he detached from the suffering, but because he used the suffering as fuel. He used the external pressure to further solidify his internal commitment to the law. He did not ask for the suffering to stop. He challenged the suffering to try and break him.
And through that crucible, he proved that the internal state is the only reality. The circumstances of exile, poverty, and attack could not diminish his inner state of Buddhahood. Therefore, the environment was fundamentally defeated. He left us the ultimate tool, the technology to replicate this transformation. He knew that relying on scripture or complex philosophy would be too difficult for the common person trapped in the daily grind. We needed a direct, atomic connection to the highest state of life. He distilled the entirety of the Lotus Sutra, the absolute principle of Ichinen Sanzen and Eisho Funi, into a single, irreducible phrase, a sound, a mantra that does not require intellectual understanding, but demands only engagement. This is the sound that cuts through the noise of the lower worlds. This is the weapon against fate. It is the Daimoku. Nam Yoho Renge Kyo. Nam Yoho Renge Kyo. This is not merely a mantra. It is the ultimate distillation of the law of life.
It is the title of the Lotus Sutra, the very essence of the universe expressed as sound. When Nichiren dedicated his life to propagating this phrase, he wasn't asking us to believe in him. He was asking us to believe in the law, and through that law, to believe in ourselves. The phrase itself is a map of existence. Nam means devotion or dedication. It is the action of fusing our lives with the eternal law. Mai-ho is the mystic law. Mai means mystic or wonderful, referring to the hidden potential within all things, the 9 lower life states and the highest state of Buddhahood, existing simultaneously. Ho means law. Together they signify the fundamental, inexorable rhythm of the cosmos. Renge is the lotus flower. This is the critical metaphor. Unlike other flowers, the lotus produces its flower and its seed pod, or fruit, at the exact same time. This symbolizes the simultaneity of cause and effect.
The cause, our actions, our thoughts, our chanting, and the effect, the resulting state of Buddhahood, are inherent and instantaneous. You do not wait decades for salvation. The potential is activated in the moment of sincere engagement. And finally, Kyo is the sound, the vibration, the voice, the continuity of life extending through past, present, and future. When you chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, you are not praying to an external god to change your circumstances. You are not begging for a lottery win. You are performing an act of spiritual engineering. You are aligning the vibration of your internal life, your Ho, with the ultimate eternal rhythm of the universe, the Myo. You are forcing the latent Buddhahood, the highest, most powerful state of your life, to emerge and dominate the lower states of suffering, hunger, and despair. Nichiren understood that this principle needed to be made tangible.
It needed to be a physical object that people could focus on, an objective reality reflecting the subjective reality of their own lives.
Therefore, he inscribed the Go-Homzon. The Go-Homzon is not an idol to be worshipped. It is the objective manifestation of Ichinen Sanzen, the momentary existence of 3,000 realms. It is the blueprint of the universe, and crucially, the blueprint of your own life. It is the mirror that reflects the highest potential you possess. When you sit before the Go-Homzon and chant the Daimoku, you are looking at the potential Buddhahood of all beings, including yourself, written out in ink. The purpose of the practice is to activate that potential, to draw the power out of the depth of your being. This is the technology that bridges the gap between the superficial concept of positive thinking and the absolute reality of Beisho Funi.
If you simply think positive while still holding deep resentment, fear, or attachment to past failures in your core life condition, the thought is a lie. The environment, Eisho Funi, will reflect the deeper, more powerful internal state of suffering. The environment doesn't care about your surface affirmations. It responds to your atomic vibration. But when you chant Daimoku, you are creating a fundamental atomic shift in that vibration. You are digging down through the layers of karma and illusion to touch the bedrock of the law. You are not changing the environment directly. You are changing the life that interacts with the environment. And because the life and its environment are inseparable, Eisho Funi, the environment must respond. The circumstance that previously looked like a dead end now reveals a path. The enemy that persecuted you now becomes the catalyst for your strength. The sickness becomes the fuel for compassion.
This is how the poison of suffering is transformed into the medicine of enlightenment. Nichiren's life was the proof of this conversion. He lived in exile, poverty, and constant danger. Yet he declared himself the happiest person in all of Japan. Why? Because the external circumstances could not diminish the absolute, unshakable reality of his internal state. He did not achieve enlightenment despite his suffering. He achieved enlightenment by using his suffering as the fuel for his practice. This is the challenge laid before you. The law is perfect. The universe is responding to your life condition right now. If you are experiencing chaos, it is because your life condition is resonating with chaos. The Daimoku is the key to recalibrating that resonance. It demands discipline. It demands consistency. It demands that you stop relying on external forces, fate, luck, or other people, and start relying entirely on the fundamental, indestructible power within your own life.
This practice is not passive resignation. It is active, aggressive engagement with your destiny. It is the declaration that you will not be dictated by the circumstances of your past karma, but that you will create the circumstances of your future enlightenment. You must stop whispering affirmations and start roaring the law. The law you are roaring is not a simple wish. It is the ultimate physics of consciousness. It is called Ichinen Sanzen, 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. This is the core realization that separates the superficial law of attraction from the profound, activating law of the universe. It means that the entire spectrum of existence, all 10 life states, all 100 worlds, all 3,000 possible realms of experience are simultaneously contained in the instant of your present thought. When the modern self-help guru tells you to visualize a red car,
you are focusing on maybe 1,000th of one realm.
You are placing a demand on the surface of reality. But when you sit before the Gohonzon and activate the Daimoku, you are addressing the entire 3,000 realms contained within that moment. You are not asking for a circumstantial change. You are recalibrating the fundamental architecture of your existence. This is why the practice is so demanding, because every single moment of life is infinitely complex, carrying the weight of all past karma and the potential of all future enlightenment. If your single moment of life is governed by anger, the 3,000 realms contained within it will manifest as conflict, friction, and resistance in your environment. If your single moment of life is governed by bodhisattva, the 3,000 realms will manifest as compassion, resilience, and the power to elevate others. The environment is not a separate entity. It is the externalized reflection of the 3,000 realms you are currently inhabiting. Nichiren proved this calculus absolutely during his exile to Sado Island. Sado was not merely a hardship, it was a death sentence. It was a frozen, remote outpost where persecution and starvation were guaranteed. By every measure of worldly logic, this was the ultimate defeat. He was alone, his followers were being executed, and the government had successfully silenced him. Yet from that frozen wasteland, he wrote some of his most powerful, triumphant treatises. He declared that Sado was not a place of banishment, but the sacred place where he was fulfilling his true mission. How can a man facing death in a shack, surrounded by enemies, declare himself happy? Because he had fundamentally changed the 3,000 realms of his own life. He did not change the physical island. Sado remained cold, remote, and dangerous. But he changed the relationship between his life and that environment.
He shifted his internal state from the realm of hell or hunger, which Sado was designed to induce, to the realm of Buddhahood. The environment, Sado, was forced to respond to the shift in his life condition. Sado stopped being a place of suffering and became the stage for his greatest victory. It became the forge where the true law was established. The poison of exile was converted into the medicine of definitive teaching. This is the practical application of Eisho Funi. The environment and the self are inseparable. When the self activates Buddhahood, the environment is automatically transformed into the Pure Land. You must understand this. The Pure Land is not a geographical location you travel to after death. It is the state of life you create right here, right now, by activating the highest of the 3,000 realms within your single moment of life. Your home, your office, your city, they are not inherently chaotic or peaceful. They are a reflection of the chaos or peace you are generating internally. If you are waiting for the external circumstances to calm down before you practice, you are waiting for a reflection to clean itself. The environment is merely the mirror. The Daimoku cleans the lens of your life. Nichiren teaches us that the greatest suffering is the greatest opportunity. The harsher the environment, the more powerful the proof of the law when you transform it. The winter never fails to turn into spring, but you must plant the seed of the law in the frozen ground of your karma and chant until the absolute unstoppable force of the universe compels that spring to arrive. This requires the courage to face your own life condition without excuse. Stop blaming the economy, your parents, or your circumstances. These are merely the script that your past karma has written.
Your practice is the declaration that you are now the author of the next chapter.
You must stop treating the Daimoku as a wish list and start treating it as the engine of your destiny. It is the sound of the universe reshaping itself to match the absolute conviction of your inner life. The depth of this teaching is not merely in transforming your environment, but in understanding the sheer scale of the internal shift required. This is where we must confront the principle of Ichinan Sanzen, the 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. Do not confuse this with simple positive thinking. That is a flimsy concept designed for self-help books. This is the operating manual for the cosmos. It states that within the single moment of your life, right now, as you breathe, as you listen, all possible realities exist simultaneously. 3,000 potential worlds are contained within your existence. This framework maps the reality of suffering, the reality of hunger, of anger, of learning, and the absolute reality of Buddhahood.
They are not separate dimensions waiting to be accessed through some futuristic technology. They are latent potentials within your life stream. The question then becomes, which of the 3,000 realms are you activating in this instant? When you are consumed by anxiety, you are actively generating the realm of hell. When you are driven by insatiable desire, you are operating in the realm of hunger. When you generate compassion and clarity, you are activating Buddhahood. The external world, your Esho, is compelled to manifest the circumstances that match the internal realm, your Hun. This is why Nichiren's life was the absolute proof. He was not a detached mystic meditating on a mountaintop. He was a man facing the gallows, facing starvation, facing the absolute hatred of a corrupt regime. But his Ichinen, his single decisive moment of resolve, was fixed on the ultimate truth of the law. He understood that if he allowed the persecution to drag him into the realms of anger or fear, he would simply manifest more persecution. If he cursed his enemies, he would solidify his own suffering. Instead, at the absolute height of his suffering, he activated the 3,000 realms of Buddhahood. He declared that the time of his persecution was the time for the establishment of the true law. He took the poison of adversity and used it to forge the medicine of enlightenment. When he was marched to Tatsunokuchi for execution, he did not tremble. He stood before the blade and actually rebuked his executioners. He was not arrogant. He was simply incapable of bowing to the delusion of death, because his life was unified with the eternal reality of the universe. The environment responded instantly. A celestial object, a bolt of lightning, a sudden event that struck fear into the hearts of his captors, forcing them to abandon the execution. This was not a miracle performed by an external deity. This was the environment, his Esho, being instantly compelled to reflect the absolute life state of Buddhahood, his Hun. You are the author of your reality, not because you can visualize a new car, but because you possess the technology to activate one of the 3,000 potential worlds within your life at any moment. The Daimoku is the key. When you chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, you are declaring with the fundamental sound of the universe that you are activating the highest of the 3,000 realms, the state of absolute, fearless, compassionate
enlightenment. This is why the practice must be consistent and profound. You cannot spend 23 hours generating the realms of hell and hunger, and then expect 5 minutes of superficial chanting to override the fundamental currents of your life. That is treating the law like a lottery ticket. The law is a discipline.
It is the commitment to maintain the life condition of Buddhahood, no matter the external circumstances. It is the unwavering decision that your environment must respond to the strength of your internal life, not the other way around. If you are waiting for peace to arrive before you practice, you are ensuring that peace will never arrive. You must generate peace internally and force the environment to conform. This is the true, non-negotiable law of attraction. It is the law of cause and effect operating on the deepest level of existence. The execution at Tatsunokuchi failed, but the persecution did not cease. The authorities, humiliated and terrified by the inexplicable celestial event, simply banished the man they could not kill. They sent Nichiren to Sado Island. This was not a resort. Sado was a frozen, desolate, isolated place where enemies of the state were sent to die slowly from starvation, exposure, or assassination. It was the ultimate test of the law of attraction, the definitive crucible for the principle of Esho Funi. Imagine the environment, the Esho. It was pure, unadulterated hell. He was housed in a dilapidated hut in a graveyard, surrounded by hostile villagers and constant threats of violence. The cold was unbearable. Food was scarce. Every moment was a struggle for basic survival. The modern superficial law of attraction would suggest that in such conditions, one must visualize warmth, abundance, and safety. But that is delusion. That is trying to paint a positive picture over a decaying reality. Nichiren did the opposite. He did not seek to escape the environment in his mind. He confronted it with the absolute, unwavering life state of Buddhahood. His internal state, his hone, was so powerful, so fixed on the eternal purpose of the law, that the external environment, the Esho, was instantly compelled to serve that purpose.
He took the frozen, desolate prison and transformed it into the ultimate platform. It was on Sado Island, under the most extreme duress, that Nichiren wrote his most profound and essential treatises. He used the adversity as the ink and the paper. He was not whining about the cold. He was declaring that this very place, this very moment of suffering, was the perfect stage for the revelation of the highest truth. He declared that he was not a prisoner, but the king of the law, utilizing the most desolate place on earth to fulfill his mission. This is the true meaning of Ichinen Sanzen in action. He was standing knee-deep in the realm of hell, yet his single focused thought moment was fixed absolutely in the highest realm of Buddhahood. The other 2,999 worlds, the suffering, the fear, the hunger, could not touch the core of his life. They became the backdrop, the necessary contrast for his ultimate realization. He was not attracting wealth or comfort.
He was attracting the opportunity to manifest his absolute inherent potential. He was compelling the environment to resonate
with his deepest internal commitment. When you chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, you are not asking for a favor. You are engaging in the same discipline. You are not waiting for your environment to improve so you can feel peace. You are generating peace, courage, and wisdom internally and forcing your environment to conform to that state. Your current struggle, whatever it may be, financial pressure, relationship turmoil, illness, that is your Sado Island. Are you letting the environment define your life state, causing you to drop into the realms of anger, animality, and hell? Or are you using that environment as the crucible, as the stage to prove the invincible power of your inherent Buddhahood? The law does not grant wishes, it demands transformation. It demands that you become the unshakable mountain in the midst of the storm.
When you activate Buddhahood, the storm does not necessarily vanish instantly, but the storm ceases to be a threat. It becomes the necessary friction against which your diamond-like spirit is polished. Your environment is merely the mirror reflecting the depth of your commitment to the law. If the reflection is chaos, it is because your internal determination is still fragmented. If your determination is absolute, the environment must yield. This is the only non-negotiable principle of the universe. The practice of Daimoku is the continuous, daily act of forcing the 3,000 worlds within your life to align with the highest potential of Buddhahood. It is the unwavering decision to never allow the external chaos to dictate the internal state of your life. This is the only true form of attraction that matters. It is the attracting of destiny itself. It is the attracting of destiny itself. Nichiren Daishonin understood this principle not as an abstract theory, but as the iron law of causality proven in the furnace of his own existence. When he was exiled to the remote, frozen island of Sado, he was surrounded by enemies, starvation, and the constant threat of execution. This environment was the epitome of the realm of hell. Yet, it was on Sado that he wrote some of his most profound treatises, establishing the core doctrine of his life's work. How could a man in hell write about the ultimate potential of the universe? Because his internal life state had transcended the environment. He did not see Sado as punishment inflicted upon him by others. He saw it as the inevitable stage for the demonstration of the law, a necessary condition for him to fulfill his vow as the votary of the Lotus Sutra. He looked at the barren, frozen landscape and understood that the suffering of the land, the plagues, the political instability, the famine that gripped Japan, was inseparable from the suffering of the people. The land and the people are one. This is the profound implication of Esho Funi, the oneness of life and its environment. If the environment is sick, it is because the internal commitment of the people, their collective Ichinen, is steeped in fundamental darkness. If you are trapped in a cycle of debt, instability, or negative relationships, you cannot merely change the furniture or move to a new city and expect the pattern to break. You will simply re-attract the same environment because the internal core, your fragmented commitment, your underlying fear, your sense of lack, has not been fundamentally transformed. You are carrying the seed of Sado Island within your own life. Nichiren's response was not to complain about the cold or the injustice.
His response was to activate the absolute, ultimate state of Buddhahood and force the environment to conform to that state. He was not attracting warmth. He was manifesting the internal fire of conviction that made the cold irrelevant. The law of attraction, when understood through the lens of Buddhism, is not about wishing for external comfort. It is about generating such an intense, unwavering internal life force, such a powerful absolute ichinen, that the external world has no choice but to shift its causality to accommodate your commitment. Your environment is merely the shadow cast by your life state. Stop fighting the shadow. Start changing the light source. The vast majority of people spend their entire lives trying to manipulate the shadow. They change jobs, they change partners, they change their credit score, believing that these external adjustments will finally bring peace.
But they keep projecting the same internal darkness, the same fundamental insecurity onto every new stage. They are attracting the same destiny because they refuse to activate the fundamental technology, the Daimoku, that changes the soil itself. The practice of Nam-myoho Renge Kyo is the process of making your internal determination so solid, so pure, that the environment literally cannot sustain its previous state of chaos in your presence. You are demanding that the universe recognize your inherent dignity and potential. This is why when you face a monumental problem, a diagnosis, a bankruptcy, a devastating loss, the instruction is always the same. Increase your Daimoku. It is not a magical incantation. It is the deliberate, forceful act of aligning your life with the ultimate rhythm of the universe. It is the continuous, daily act of polishing the mirror of your life so that the true, unblemished reflection of Buddhahood can shine forth.
When that light is pure, the shadows of karma and environment must retreat. The land must yield. The people around you must respond to the transformation you have enacted. You are the sovereign of your environment. You are not a victim of circumstance. To believe otherwise is to deny the core teaching of Nichiren Buddhism. It is to deny the reality of Ichinen Sanzen, that every single moment of your life contains the 3,000 realms, and that your single thought, your single determined moment, has the power to shift the entire universe. The moment you cease to believe you are dependent on the external world for your happiness, the moment you decide that your internal state is non-negotiable, that is the moment the true law of attraction activates. You are no longer begging for scraps. You are commanding destiny to serve your ultimate purpose. This is the power Nichiren demonstrated on Sado.
He took the worst possible environment and transformed it into the ultimate stage for proving the truth of the law. He did not wait for the shogunate to pardon him. He did not wait for the climate to warm. He generated the warmth of absolute conviction internally, and that conviction fundamentally altered his destiny and the destiny of the world. Your challenge is not to escape your current suffering. Your challenge is to use that suffering as the raw material to forge an unbreakable diamond of life. Your environment is not your enemy. It is the necessary resistance against which your Buddhahood is proven. Stop running. Start chanting. The true question now is not merely about understanding the law, but about utilizing the technology. How do you, a person burdened by debt, fear, or illness, access the 3,000 realms contained within your single moment of life?
The simple answer, the ultimate truth that often trips the intellectual mind, is the practice of Daimoku.
When you sit down and chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, you are not engaging in a passive meditation. You are not begging for a handout from the universe. You are engaging in an act of cosmic declaration. You are declaring the fundamental reality that your life right now, in its most afflicted, confused, or suffering state, is inherently one with the mystic law. You are declaring that the potential for Buddhahood is not something to be earned or attained in some distant future, but something to be manifested here and now. This is why the intensity matters. This is why consistency matters. You are not waiting for the universe to send you a sign. You are sending the universe an absolute, unwavering command based on the deepest rhythm of life itself. The shallow law of attraction says, visualize the money. Nichiren Buddhism says, forge the internal state of life that makes financial freedom an inevitable consequence of your existence.
The shallow law of attraction says, wait for the perfect partner to arrive. Nichiren Buddhism says, polish your own life mirror until the inherent dignity and compassion of your Buddhahood shines so brightly that only a worthy partner can possibly reflect that light. The environment, your job, your relationships, your health is the mirror. It is reflecting the depth and purity of your internal conviction. If the reflection is distorted, messy, or dark, you do not clean the mirror image, you clean the source of the reflection. This practice is the ultimate purification process. It burns away the accumulated toxins of negative karma, the habits of thought that keep you trapped in the lower worlds of hell, hunger, and animality. It is a revolution of the self, and that revolution is the only thing that can guarantee the revolution of the land. Esho Funi is the guarantee. If you are serious about changing your destiny, stop consuming content that promises instant fixes.
Stop seeking external validation or quick psychological tricks. The only tool you need is the Gohonzon, the scroll that serves as the physical manifestation of your inherent Buddhahood, and the unrelenting, consistent practice of Daimoku. Nichiren Daishonin proved that the human spirit, armed with the mystic law, can transform the bleakest of winters into the blossoming of spring. He proved that exile, persecution, and attempted execution are merely the necessary resistance required to forge an unbreakable life state. Your problems are not unique. They are the universal curriculum designed to force you to reveal the power within. Do not waste this suffering. Do not let this moment of pain pass without leveraging it for your ultimate transformation. The law is not a theory. It is a demonstrable reality. The final challenge I give you is this. Stop talking about your potential. Stop analyzing your karma. Stop waiting for inspiration. Engage the practice with the absolute determination that you will prove the truth of Esho Funi in your own life, starting today. Chant until the shadows retreat. Chant until the environment yields. Chant until your life becomes the living proof that the power of Ichinen Sanzen is the ultimate, undeniable law of attraction. The power is within you. Now, use it.